I spent the last 2 years collecting super rare disposable cameras from collectors all over the world in order to open them, use them, and try to understand one thing. How has this tiny invention, created to help make documenting our lives easier, managed to survive through every technological development and advancement in photography up until today? And crucially, does its re-emergence in popularity point to something deeper about our relationship with time and memory? Let's find out. The exact origin of the disposable camera is somewhat debated, because some people believe that even the original Kodak 1888 was by technicality disposable, as you had to mail it in order to get your photos developed. But in terms of the consumer product that we all know and love today, I'm going to give that title to the PhotoPac. Created by Alfred D. Weir and introduced to the world in 1948 at the State Fair of Texas. The original PhotoPac would allow users to take 8 photographs before writing their name on the box, mailing it in, and receiving their photos back, but not their camera. Disposable. But perhaps the invention was just a little too on the cutting edge, as eventually the PhotoPac was packed up for good. And it would be a long wait until 1986 before Fujifilm introduced their quick snap, swiftly followed by Kodak in 1987 with the Kodak Fling. This camera, when Kodak was the sponsor of the 1988 Seoul Olympics, exploded in popularity.
With the many advances in camera technology, it's getting easier and easier to take at least a decent snapshot. The latest thing I think we've all heard about but really haven't seen are the disposable tiny little cameras. Let's go to those first.
Both Fuji and Kodak, two major film manufacturers, have just come out with disposable cameras. This one is Fuji's Quick Snap, which is a 35mm disposable camera. Kodak, at the same time, has come out with the Fling. This is the very first time, actually, John, that one has been seen outside the confines of Eastman Kodak.
What are we talking about in price here?
Well,
is there a difference between the Fuji and the Kodak?
Yes, the Fuji is going to be selling for under $10, and the Kodak carries a suggested price of $6.95. They may actually sell for a little cheaper than those prices.
Now, for the first time, a huge number of people, particularly in the USA, were able to shoot photos on film without owning a camera. Disposable cameras quickly went from being niche to extremely commonplace. In 1988, they sold just over 3 million units, but by 1992, that had exploded to over 20 million in the USA alone. The ease of use of these cameras was extremely appealing, especially to tourists and hobbyists, people that wanted to take high-quality photos in the moment without carting around a camera or even having to have any in-depth photography knowledge. Pretty useful. The major camera companies had contracts with theme parks, hotels, and basically you name it. If there was a good place to take a photo, you'd find a disposable. And as you might expect, with that huge increase in demand came a lot of additional models and innovations, such as the ability to shoot underwater, which conveniently leads us to my own personal collection, beginning in 1994 with this beautiful little gem, the Kodak Fun Aquatic. I've been collecting disposable cameras from every year I've been alive, and this first one holds a special place in my heart. Not because it's any good, in fact, the photos came out pretty terribly, but because it perfectly cements exactly what the invention was created to do: provide total convenience to consumers.
Oh god. Okay, we might need to play with that, lol.
I think it took those 2 though, at least.
You don't own a camera? No problem. This is the camera.
This is the perfect second camera.
You don't want to take it to a lab to get your photos developed? No problem. Mail it in, and we'll send your photos back.
After 24 pictures, I take the whole thing to where I have pictures made.
You want to take your camera on holiday? You want to take it in the pool to take photos? In water? No problem. We'll put a crazy plastic casing around it. Whatever the consumer wanted, it was happening. Stat. In other words, cha-ching. If I can make one thing abundantly clear here, it's that the history of disposable cameras perfectly charts the rise in convenience of documenting our lives. But as we move on, it charts something else pretty well too: pop culture. 1995, Barbie and Baywatch. 1996, cigarettes. 1997, Jurassic Park. 1998, Harley Davidson. 1999, Parent Trap movie. And 2000, full-size Polaroids. The history of disposable cameras allows us a perfect window into seeing and understanding pop culture, and crucially, how it evolved and changed over time. Now, of course, in the case of something like Barbie, the fact that this brand experienced a huge resurgence means that it creates this odd situation where a really cheap consumer product in the 90s is now a highly sought-after collector's item in the 2020s, which nobody could have really predicted. In 2023, the Barbie movie would create this huge cultural impact and make these products sort of come back again, but it's a really interesting full circle moment with some of the items here to sort of chart the rise and fall and circular movement of trends. And in the case of our 1996 and 2001 camera, we have almost the exact opposite situation with cigarette brands, where it's now literally illegal to make these. They will have no circular moment for a while. A particularly fun fact is that the previous version of this Marlboro cigarettes camera actually required the purchase of 5 packs of cigarettes in order for it to be claimed. Could you imagine? And so they become collector's items for almost the exact opposite reason. In 1997, with the Jurassic Park camera, we begin to see the common trend of marketing film and TV shows, particularly to children, and allowing them to be claimed in fun and interesting ways, such as inside cereal boxes, or by collecting coupons in magazines and sending off for them to be mailed to your house.
How can you catch a dinosaur? With the Lost World single-use Kodak camera. Yours free with 3 proofs and $1 shipping. Details on marked boxes.
Again, this happens in 1999 with the Lindsay Lohan Disney movie, The Parent Trap. Also for the TV show Pop Idol in 2002, 2003 with the Harry Potter franchise, 2007 with the reboot of Doctor Who, and in 2010 for Toy Story 3. And that's just my collection. None of these movies or TV shows have direct links to photography, but the opportunity for these brands to associate themselves so directly with us documenting our lives and making memories is just too valuable an opportunity to pass up. Particularly for children, these items are becoming linked to some really important moments in their lives, and this nostalgia and this cycle of nostalgia, of course, we can see it in full force even today. Linking your film with my memories, forming a deep emotional bond since childhood? You can't just buy that type of marketing. These items were special. Or maybe you can buy it, actually. I guess they bought it by technicality. But ultimately, again, it's those two ideas merging into one. Convenience, pop culture. But it wasn't just film and TV projects aimed at children where this combination proved popular. Combing through this collection, we have some really niche communities being catered for. For example, let's go back to my 1998 camera from Harley Davidson. This camera was released to coincide with a huge event where it was expected over 130,000 motorcycle riders would come from cities all across the USA to Milwaukee in order to celebrate the company's 95th anniversary. What better way to document it, a sign of the times, than by giving loads of them a camera and asking them to snap photos. In order to attempt to mirror those riders' journey, I took this camera on my own adventure across the USA. I went through the West Coast, Vegas, Chicago, then up the East Coast, all the way to New York City, where, at the Harley Davidson store in Manhattan, I asked the owner to snap a photo for me, and he accidentally covered the lens with his finger.
Ready? Oh, mind your hand. Your hand is covering the lens.
And took this image. Yeah, that kind of tells you everything you need to know about the highs and lows of using disposable cameras. And that leads us quite nicely, or poorly maybe, to some of the common criticisms of disposable cameras. And there's a few. Thinking about our guy in the Harley Davidson shop. One of those is that the viewfinder, the bit that you put your eye through to see the photo, doesn't quite match up with the lens that actually takes the photo. So it's very, 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 very common for someone to take the photo, think they've nailed it, but accidentally cover the lens and take a blank photo. All the damn time. Number 2, there are no camera settings. So if you're in a dark room and you haven't got a flash or it doesn't work properly, well, the photo's just probably not going to come out. There is no opportunity for you to tweak the look of the photo. You get it in the box, you turn the wheel.
Oh god, that's now kind of fallen in.
You snap the pic. Okay? The simplicity of the system is both a blessing and a curse. It's ideal if you don't really know what you're doing, but, doesn't leave much room for a small error in judgment. Third and finally, things just break all the time for no good reason. For example, I've had the wheel on the back that you turn to get the film ready for the next photo jam. many times. And then countless times in this collection, I have had the flash on the camera just break or not work randomly, leading to awful dark photos when I've expected them to be crystal clear. Even in the newer cameras, not just the old ones. And then sometimes, because of poor storage conditions over a number of years, the film inside these cameras has just decayed or got too hot or got too cold or something has gone wrong and the photos just kind of look aged poorly. I suppose an interesting note on that, just in case anyone is wondering. Yes, I am taking photos here on some really expired film, up to 30 years ago, and they can still come out well. Alas, we are more worried about the historical developments here than the technical aspects of disposable cameras. I'll get into tips for navigating that in a separate video. So, let's remember those two tenets of disposable cameras: convenience and pop culture. As we enter the 2000s, what do consumers want? How about different types of film? That's what Polaroid were banking on when they created this extreme-looking thing, the Polaroid Pop Shots. Yes, this massive unit was designed to be disposed. More on environmental concerns in a little bit. But similarly to how Fujifilm and Kodak in the late 80s were catering for consumers that wanted to take film photographs without owning a camera, Polaroid seek to capitalize on the popularity of their own Polaroid photography film in order to allow casual and hobbyist consumers to try out Polaroid film without having to buy a dedicated camera. Now they can just chuck it in the bin instead. Unfortunately, it didn't really shake the market. And my intense research to try and find one of these things that actually works led me absolutely nowhere. I have not managed to find anybody online that has one that still works. And even though mine should have, sadly, it failed.
What does that mean? Do we not get one? Do you think it had nothing in it? And do you think the guy sold me it? You think the guy sold me a camera that didn't have any film in it?
So I don't even have an example of the photograph to show you. Polaroid eventually turned their attention to capturing a share of the disposable market by creating a fairly standard disposable, like this one from 2014. But that didn't stop others from testing out different types of film. One extremely popular example that was far more simple was black and white film. This is a black and white Boots disposable camera from 2005. Simple, elegant, vintage. This tiny tweak, offering consumers the opportunity to take monochrome photographs, has remained consistently popular from the 90s up until right now, including, from my collection, this 2022 Kodak black and white disposable. More on that later. But I hear you say, Rob, surely not every development in the history of disposable cameras is about convenience and pop culture. There must be something else. Well, kind of. I'll play ball. Because there is one use case that started to gain some traction, which was a little bit more practical, sensible, insurance-based, you might say. This is a 2006 Renault Services accident cam. Of course, before everyone had a smartphone in their pocket with verifiable metadata, we needed a way to quickly prove and document that something actually happened. In a sweeping trend, many car companies began to ship new models with an accident camera inside them, allowing a driver in a situation where an accident occurred to quickly take out the camera and snap pictures of what happened. Of course, as these are 35mm film cameras, analog, the photos are not editable before they are developed. Therefore, if you send these cameras directly to the car company or to the insurance company to develop, they are verifiable. Interesting system, right? It caught on. In the ultimate endgame of this trend, I managed to find this amazing thing, an Arriva Buses accident camera handed out to drivers who were driving Arriva buses in the UK between 2013 and 2016. And even though that might seem late, I'm willing to bet that some bus companies are still handing these out to drivers. You know, they can't have their phone on them. What happens if they need to quickly snap pics? Inside, this thing contains all sorts of amazing goodies. As well as the sealed camera, it also contains an accident report, providing the driver with exact instructions on exactly what to take a photo of, depending on the situation, and how to file the incident and develop the camera so that it is verifiable. 2016. Isn't that crazy? So sure, it wasn't always purely pop culture and convenience pushing these things forward. Sometimes 35mm analog film just happened to be the most practical thing to use in a particular situation. But going back to pop culture for a moment, there are some key industries that seem to just somehow be missing, like sports. This is a 2008 England football camera. released to coincide with the Euros, which, ironically, England didn't even qualify for in the end that year. Which is bizarre. But even more bizarre is that this is not official merchandise. And if you zoom out, the wider picture, excuse the pun, is that in general, disposables were not manufactured to help cover or market sporting events. Sure, you'll find the odd USA sports team that has one, or maybe even Chelsea Football Club, but in general, it's not a trend. My best guess is that culturally, clubs don't want to encourage fans to be purchasing these and snapping photos during the game. Or perhaps the lack of camera settings on disposables just make them impractical for capturing fast action, therefore, what's the point? But then we have another omission in general, which is celebrities. Given that these cameras are coming of age in the mid-noughties at the height of tabloid celebrity paparazzi culture, where are the celebrity-endorsed cameras? I can't find them. If anybody has any good reasons for this beyond my own thinking, please let me know. But there are two pretty big things there in our culture at this moment that I just can't find disposables for. It's odd. But when we talk about disposable cameras and things that are concerning, I suppose one huge elephant in the room is always the environmental concerns. You know, related to disposing the entire camera. I wouldn't do that. Now, there have been advancements in this area, and I'll admit, I have been burned personally, because sometimes when I'm going to add to my collection, I might find the most perfect disposable, but as I get close to adding it to basket, purchasing it, or negotiating with the collector, something comes up, alarm bells ring, and I realize as I look at little details on the technical specifications, it's not actually disposable. One of the biggest advancements in disposable cameras is to simply remove the disposable element, making them more environmentally friendly, recyclable, or that you can just simply pop more film in and they just look disposable. Kind of cool, but not for me when I was trying to collect the real thing. For example, this one from Lumography, which has interchangeable colorful lenses. I really loved it and I was about to buy it, and then I was told by the collector, like, hey, do you know that that's not actually disposable? That's not really what you're trying to collect. And I was like, oh my God, I did not know that, no. It's not disposable, it's refillable. Refillable cameras. And that has become, in terms of an environmental trend, number one, I would say. Removing the disposable element, replacing it with a refillable element. Reusable cameras. And we have many, many models, such as this one from Kodak, that mimic disposable camera simplicity, lack of settings, but that you can purchase film and keep popping it in. They have mixed reviews, I would say, because for hobby photographers or even professional photographers, they want to have the camera settings, and if they're going to go through the whole thing of buying the film and choosing exactly what to do, they'd also like to have some control over how to shoot on that film, right? How to expose it. Whereas if you want something casual, quick to take photos with, the likelihood you're going to buy a whole camera system to insert the film seems low, whereas a disposable camera is still more convenient because at least you know it's just for this moment. I don't know if the market is growing or not, but the trend is absolutely there. So often you end up with a sort of film camera without any of the benefits of a film camera, or you end up with a disposable camera, but then you have something to keep and store that you might forget about and accidentally create more waste anyway. Reminds me of reusable coffee cups. I certainly wouldn't want to buy one every time I was out and about. So yeah. There is one other thing we're seeing as a clear trend, however, and that is, as they re-emerge in popularity, artists using them for all sorts of projects and recycling the cameras and the camera bodies in new and interesting ways. Just like I am, right here. Of course, I have no intention of throwing any of these camera bodies away. I'm going to eventually put them in a really nice display and use them to show the documentation and how my life has happened across the background of the development of these cameras and pop culture, and it's going to be a really cool thing, I hope. I'm not putting them in the bin, that would be insane. But I'm just glad I even have the option, because it wasn't so long ago that disposable cameras almost died altogether. In my collection between 2014 and 2018, there is a significant lull in development. It's just painfully obvious that during this period of time, people really didn't care about disposable cameras. We have 2014, Polaroid, basic, boring, zero innovation. They used to make this. Come on. 2015, we have this underwater camera from DM, the European drugstore, but ultimately it's almost identical in every way to the 1994 camera. Zero development 20 years later. 2016, I even found this plain camera, which literally has no branding or anything whatsoever, for a type of camera that's synonymous with being branding first and marketing and pushing all these cool, colorful ideas. Are we really gonna just be throwing out plain cameras? Yeah, apparently. 2017, I even have this basic one from Max Spielman. This is just a photo developer from the UK High Street. Can you see the trend here? Marketing, brands, films, TV, all the things that make these interesting and colourful are disappearing and retreating in the background, and all we're really getting are simple disposables made for simple practical purposes by actual camera brands that are also trying to sell you on the processing and the development. So what's really happening? Compared to the boom in pop culture adjacent collectible disposables that we saw in the 90s and noughties, the 2010s are looking like a barren wasteland of creativity and commerce. Where's the 2016 presidential disposable camera? I don't know. Where's one for the Olympics? Where's one for this? Where's one for that? They're just not existing in this period. So what's the real reason for this near-death experience? I'd say that the rapid rise of consumer tech, in particular smartphones for the average person, made documenting their lives so convenient that for this moment in time, film and analog photography was just simply not as interesting to the world. The idea of carrying around a film camera that was quite clunky just became redundant for the majority of people. Against the backdrop of this, we're also seeing a steep decline in the number of film labs, driving up the price to actually develop the photos. Costs are massively increasing. Massively, okay? When I was a child, I remember walking up and down the high street in Wrexham, and it was very common to see 99 pence to develop photos, to develop disposable cameras. It was super cheap and everywhere was competing to do it. Now, for example, I basically have a choice of 3 places. I can send my camera to Take It Easy in Leeds, I can send my camera to Come Through in Manchester, or I can walk it down the road to my local Boots and they will post it to the central Boots, which is somewhere in the Midlands, and it will cost me absolutely loads in postage, in fees for development, in fees for scanning, in fees for posting the photos back, or even just emailing them to me, and it adds up. Each option in general is at least £5. Then you add the postage on top of that. And if you want the scans in high quality, even more money. It could easily come out at between £10 and £20 just to get the photos back from these cameras. That is a 2,000% increase from what I remember when I was a child. So of course people aren't doing it as much. But, thankfully, remember the cycle from earlier? Yes, there is hope. Towards the end of the 2010s, we begin to see some pushback against all the shiny new tech we've been enjoying. And there's a new buzzword in town: vintage. As disposables and film photography in general becomes more scarce, it also becomes more cool. At this moment, culture is experiencing an analog boom of sorts, with vinyl sales beginning to skyrocket and people turning away from convenience to craft and the allure of the past. Weddings are a perfect example, and this huge box from 2019 is a perfect example of something created just for wedding guests. And you know what? The film inside these things absolutely sucks.
Oh my God, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the...
But it ain't about the film, because slapping a disposable on every single table and letting people go wild created a sense of community and living in the moment, bringing people together without tech and creating a shared experience that we had to wait in anticipation to all share in again later. At a time when Instagram was growing in popularity at insane rates with 1 billion users, it makes a lot of sense that people were turning back to something that felt more real somehow. Time and a device where that instant feedback loop of social media wasn't really a thing. So yeah, kind of weird. These things went from almost dying to just being really cool again. This, for example, is my 2018 BTS disposable from their exhibition in Seoul, South Korea. This is merch sold by one of the hottest boy bands in human history, and it's a disposable camera. We are so back. This here is a 2020 Vans World Peace disposable, created as merchandise to support the release of a new shoe and skate film. That's cool. That's nice. And this is a 2021 Kate Spade disposable, free to people that spent over $300 in their flagship New York City store. So we've got the hottest boy bands in the world, skate films, designer brands. I mean, come on now. If that isn't pointing to a resurgence in cool, I don't know what is. We've gone from the brink to the brink of cool. Sounds like a duck. Boy bands, skaters, fashion brands. But where does this leave us today? Well, let's check the final cameras in my collection for some hints about where we might be heading next. Back to that 2022 Kodak black and white disposable. It's both an innovation, a brand new, thinner, compact body shape to easily fit in your body, with a new, slimmer, compact body to more easily fit in your pocket, and a total throwback because the film inside is Kodak Tri-X400, an extremely popular black and white film developed in the 40s. Perfect combination of nostalgia and vintage and modern convenience. Okay, hold that thought. Then we have 2023 with this Fujifilm edition Simple Ace disposable. Remember all the way back to the beginning of the video in 1986 when Fujifilm developed the first truly consumer disposable camera? Well, this has the same color scheme. It's literally the latest version of that camera from 1986. Again, we've got all the vintage nostalgia of the past, and we've got all the convenience and the modern updates, the flash, the compact body, the ease of use, and the fact that you can buy it pretty much anywhere in Japan that's near a tourist spot, such as when I was at the floating shrine. And then 2024. Where have I put it? A simple Boots disposable purchased on my 30th birthday itself. It's simple and elegant with a classic design mimicking the look and feel of an actual film camera from the 80s, like this one. Peep that leather around the body. See that? Same thing. If there's one trend I'm seeing here more than anything else, it's that the future is the past. It's a combination of all the convenience we've seen developed alongside that vintage feel to appeal to consumers that want to take photographs which do not resemble the modern technology of phones and digital cameras. Yes, we're seeing less overt pop culture references. There's no Netflix camera, no Mr. Beast camera, at least right now. But there is still that common, ever-present thread of allowing people that might have an interest in analog and film photography to simply pick something up and have a go. So yes, we still have some problems. The lack of film labs, the expense of developing the photographs, the environmental concerns and recyclable options. And I do believe that might be why we're seeing a steep decline in the pop culture references. Brands don't want to be directly associated with something in this moment where environmental factors are such a huge concern for everyone around the world. They don't really want to be the face of something that you literally use once and throw away. I suppose for marketing purposes, that could be an L. They don't want to take it. But as we move further into the resurgence of analog photography from general consumers, directly combating the advancements of AI and other tech, I believe people aren't just concerned about creating a vintage look, but attempting to capture what they believe is the real thing. Burning light into a physical piece of film, one take. No zeros and ones or manipulation or editing. And when it comes to our lives and memories, that really means something. These cameras allow people to easily have their first taste of that feeling. And I feel strongly that over the next 40 years, that means that in many ways, the future will still be the past.